Everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, I am delighted to be talking with someone who has a talent for work that rhymes, a talent for work that is accessible and creatively written, and a prolific author, Mr. Dan Gutman. Thank you for joining me. May I call you Dan?
Please. Thanks, Jason. So good to meet you and talk to you in person, and I'm looking forward to it.
Great to talk with you as well. Great to talk with you as well. I have two books handy that I believe we're focusing on, but you're the author of multiple series as well. The Genius Files series, middle grades fiction books, really a range from young to adult, from birth to adulthood.
That's because I get bored so easily. I have to do different things all the time.
Love it. I love it. I can totally relate. So we have Miss Daisy's Crazy, which I think has an anniversary coming up. Is that right?
It's, believe it or not, amazingly, the 20th anniversary of the series My Weird School, and also the 100th book in the series.
Wow. Wow. That is, I said prolific. I don't think that covers it. What's more prolific than prolific? Is that prolific-er? I don't think so.
I think prolific covers the waterfront pretty
I
well.
think it does. I think it does. And then we also have most recent Miss
That's
Nickel is
that's
in a
the
pickle.
100th book in the series.
Wow.
Miss
Number
Nickel
100.
is in a pickle.
Amazing. Look at us twinning. Look at that.
We should swap books.
There are special effects. Here, I'll hand you mine and you
Okay, and
hand
I'll
me
hand you
yours.
mine. Here you go.
Wow, look, that's amazing how that works.
When
Um,
I do Zooms with kids at school, Jason, when the kid will come up to the camera and to ask a question, I'll say, "Hey, Joe, give me a high five," and I'll go like this,
uh-huh,
and
uh-huh.
then the kid puts his hand on the camera, and we do a high five together.
Love it, love it. We should close with that. We should
Okay,
absolutely close with that.
got it.
So I have an author question because I am an English teacher. And so I should clear my throat after I say that. English teacher. So what inspires you to write for young people?
I was just thinking about this the other day because it's so weird the way life takes you in directions that you never had predicted. I didn't start out writing for children. In fact, I didn't start out writing. I uh, I majored in psychology in college. Never took a writing class, and I figured I was going to be a psychologist. I went to graduate school for 2 years in psych, uh, and I hated every second of it. Uh, I didn't want to be a psychologist, and I just thought, what do I like to do? And I always enjoyed writing letters to my friends. Writing just seemed to come naturally to me, even when I was a kid. So I said, okay, I'm going to move to New York City. I'm going to be a starving writer.
Mhm.
And so I did that. And I had tried writing for adults. I had tried writing newspaper articles, magazine articles, nonfiction books, screenplays, everything. And I wasn't really that successful. I really wasn't earning a living. At the time, I didn't have to make much money. I was single, and just living in some crappy apartment.
Mhm.
Um, but then my son was born. My son was born in 1990, and I should actually, well, I'll show you a picture later. My son Sam, I started reading children's books with him, for the first
Mhm.
time since I was a kid. And I thought, nothing else works. Let's try writing for kids. And as soon as I started writing for kids, I felt this is what I'm good at. This
Mhm.
is what I should have been doing all along. So I switched to writing for kids. And, I didn't get into this to save the world or anything. I just seemed to have a knack for it. But as soon as I started writing for kids, I started getting these wonderful letters and emails from teachers and librarians and parents saying, my son, my daughter, my student hated to read. They wouldn't pick up a book. Then they picked up your book or whatever, and now all they want to do is read your books. And
Mhm.
it makes you feel so good to just write some silly words on a page that can have such a positive impact on a kid's life. So it's been so great for me to do this. I feel like I was really lucky to fall into this career where I can actually do some good for the world.
I love that so much. And I love the series title, My Weirdtastic School, My Weird School. I've spent a lot of time in schools. I've spent a lot of time with people in that want to be in schools that are in a school to be in a school. Imagine that. So I'm curious about kind of that lightning moment of how the series came to be, and
Oh
also what
yeah.
it's like to have this history of this book series.
Yeah, it's another thing that I fell into actually, because I was writing for older kids, for fifth, sixth graders for the most part. And then my daughter, I have two kids now. I have a son and a daughter. And here they are actually. Um,
Ah,
my
lovely.
daughter Emma was in second grade, and this is my son Sam and my daughter Emma. And actually, they don't look like that anymore, Jason.
Ah,
Now, now they look like this. Okay, Sam is now 34 years old, and Emma is 28 years old.
they have
But
upgraded.
yeah, yes, yes, kids 2.0. And so Emma, what happened with my weird school is I was writing for older kids, but Emma was in second grade at the
Mm,
time. And I was doing a lot of school visits, as I still do. And when you visit a school, you have to talk to everybody, not just the kids in your age range. So I would have to talk to the second graders and the first graders, and I didn't have anything to say to them.
mhm,
And it just so happened that Emma was reading Junie B. Jones at the time, which was hugely popular then and is still popular now. And I thought, gee, there should be something like Junie B. Jones told from a boy's point of view.
mhm,
And I
mhm.
thought, so I took a Junie B. Jones book and I basically reverse engineered it. I counted the number of pages, the number of chapters, the number of words, the number of pictures, and I just kind of wrote sort of my take on an obnoxious little kid from a boy's point of view. And that's how My Weird School got started. I didn't know it was going to be a series from the start. I'd been rejected so many times. I wasn't so presumptuous to think, oh, some publisher is going to give me a 50-book series.
Right, right.
No, if I could just sell one book, I would have been happy. So that was Miss Daisy is Crazy. I sold it to HarperCollins on the, it never got rejected by anybody. And then they said, how about, could you do three more? And it occurred to me that I could do a series where each book in the series focuses on a different grown-up at the school. Miss
Mhm.
Daisy was the first one, and it would be the teacher, the art teacher, the gym teacher, the health teacher, the this teacher, the that teacher. And I realized it really had the potential to be a series. And they asked me for four more, and it started to catch on with kids and
Mhm.
librarians. And they asked me for four more, and from four more, and 20 years went by magically, and now we're up to past 100 books. In fact, Miss Nickel is the 100th book, but
Yeah.
already the 101st book came out, which is Mrs. Marge is in charge.
Nice, nice.
She's in charge of extracurricular activities at the school, like underwater hockey and things like that. Anyway, so the series goes on and will continue at least for couple of years, I guess. And
Yeah.
it's just been an amazing thing for me because I never predicted it was going to happen. I didn't know I was going to write children's books. I didn't know I was going to write this series. I didn't know it would be a series. And I pinch myself every day because it's really tough these days to launch a series. And there's a lot of authors who wish they were in my position.
Yeah, yeah. Well, wonderful creating, and how fortuitous that you chose to write about a school with such an extensive staff as well.
I was going to say, there's 100 books in the series, but there usually are not 100 grown-ups who work at a school. So I've had to sort of like starting to use like the therapy dog,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
the guy who mows the lawn. Miss Nickel comes in to help the kids make a garden in the playground. So I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel now, Jason.
Well, the therapy dog is very important. It's very important.
Yes.
Absolutely, truly, truly. Um, so these books have they all been illustrated by the same individual?
Yes,
Uh,
Jim Paylott. Yes.
I was going to ask about that collaboration as well.
He is amazing, and like almost
Oh,
all of my illustrators. Well, actually, of all my illustrators, he is the only one I've ever met. Usually
Nice.
people seem to assume that authors and illustrators, we work together side by side, that's hardly ever the case. The publisher matched me up with Jim, and people are interested to find out that Jim and we've been working together now for 20 years. We've done over 100 books together, and we've only met each other once in person. Once, because Jim lives in Arizona, and I live in New York City. So we're thousands of miles apart, but we communicate by email and text and stuff like that. And by the way, here's a picture of Jim and I. This was the one time that we actually did meet in person.
There's proof positive evidence,
Yeah.
and it's not a Clark Kent Superman situation.
No, he's a great guy. I consider him a good friend of mine, even though we don't really see each other face to face. But it's been a great collaboration. I pretty much just I write the book and I send it to my editor. My editor emails it to Jim, and he reads the manuscript through. It's
Hmm.
about 8,000 words in a My Weird School book, and Jim will pick specific scenes that he thinks would lend themselves to pictures, and he distributes them like every certain number of pages through the book, and that's how we work together. Sometimes I don't even really see the pictures until the book is printed.
Yeah, wow, wow. Has there been a time that he's surprised you with one of his images in particular?
I don't know about that. I don't really visualize the stories the way people imagine I do.
Hmm.
I pretty much leave it up to him. But it is interesting because a few years back, HarperCollins asked us if we'd be interested in doing some graphic novels,
Hmm.
My Weird School graphic novels. And we both said, yeah, that would be really cool. And I'd never done anything like that before, and neither had he really. And I didn't know how to do it. um, do you write a script or what do you do? And I went to some websites to see how to write a graphic novel, and they said, yes, there's a very strict format you should use. And I
Hmm.
tried to write it out like a screenplay. That didn't work for me. And I
Yeah.
said, I'm just going to try and do it another way. I'm just going to try and draw pictures, like stick figures and cartoon balloons, and make my own kind of dummy that way. And if I could just show you a picture, because
Yes, yeah.
it's kind of interesting because in this book, in this graphic novel, uh, there's one scene that it takes place in the teacher's lounge at school.
Hmm.
Now, I've never been in a teacher's lounge before, but I imagine like it must be like a magical wonderland. You know,
Nice.
the teachers, they're swinging around on trapezes, and you probably have like a hot tub in there where
That's exactly what it's like. Yes.
right, the teachers can play with beach balls, or if they get stressed out, they could just like, lay around on hammocks all day. Must be great to be a teacher. Anyway,
Hmm. Hmm.
I made these 2 pages. So I just sketched out in my really pathetic drawing style, these 2 pages. I gave them to Jim, and I'll show you what Jim did with the exact same 2 pages.
Yeah.
So you saw my drawing.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
what Jim did. Uh, the teachers are having fun. He put 3 of them in the hot tub there. So he will go far beyond what I have written. And he even added a butler who's serving the teachers hors d'oeuvres on a tray while,
Yes.
while they lay around listening to music and sleeping. But it's been so much fun for me to just come up with these wacky ideas and see what a really talented illustrator can do to bring them to life. And I hope that kids get as much enjoyment out of reading these books as I got from creating them. I want to mention one thing that
Yes, by all means.
writing graphic novels, it's for me, it was completely different than writing my usual books on the computer, because not only do you have to like really condense your language into very short sentences, but it's really up to the author to decide like how many panels you're going to devote to each scene.
Hmm.
Some things lend themselves to like one panel or two or a full page illustration. Other times you want 6 panels on the page, and somebody's got to make those decisions. And with the way Jim and I work, I make those decisions. Sometimes he will find that, gee, I really need another panel to do this or one less panel. So we kind of negotiate back and forth. but it's a real collaboration, and it's fun for me to write in a completely different way than the way I ever wrote before.
But love it. You were mentioning school visits, and you mentioned interacting with readers and uh, taking notes from your children, which I love. Before we reach the final question, any particular memory of an interaction with a reader, or a letter you've received, or an email, or anything that's been surprising or sort of inspiring along the way that you'd like to share?
Yeah. But yeah, well, I will say that, most of the My Weird School books are dedicated to my daughter Emma because she inspired the series. But every so often, somebody will give me an idea that I use, either a title or a topic that I use, and I will dedicate the book to that person. So I was visiting this one school in Connecticut. I remember it was Cobb, Connecticut. And when I visited schools, now I just do school visits virtually. But back
Hmm.
then I was
Hmm.
doing them in person. And I'd have lunch with a group of kids and we'd sit around a table, they'd get us a pizza or whatever, and we'd just chat, you know. And so I said what I always say to these kids. I say, what's the weirdest thing that ever happened in your school? Because you never know what they're going to say.
Hmm.
So this one kid says, well, last week the dentist was here. And I said, whoa, what? He says, oh yeah, every year the dentist comes to our school to teach us about dental hygiene. And I thought, that's a My Weird School book waiting to happen.
Absolutely.
So I wrote Dr. Floss is the boss. And so I dedicated that book to the kids at Coscob School in Connecticut because they gave me the idea for
Love it. Love it.
it.
Love that you're linked right there with the students, and still connecting virtually and doing those things. If I want to find out more about connecting with you, more about your work, where's the best way to do that? And I was going to ask what's next for you, but it sounds like you have more books on the way.
Yeah, My Weird School. Well, I'll tell you that. Is this going to be online like immediately or months from now? Or
It can be whenever you'd like it to be,
oh,
actually.
okay. Well, I work about 3 books ahead of people, so
Uh-huh.
I've already written the next 3 My Weird School books. So,
Wow.
like Mrs. Marge is in charge just came out a few weeks ago. The next one is going to be Ms. Green is mean, and
Uh-huh.
she's
Uh-huh.
a math teacher. The one after that is going to be called Mr. and Mrs. Phelps Need Some Help. And it's a husband and wife team. And Mrs. Phelps is going to bring back shop. Remember shop when you were a kid?
I do remember Shop,
Yeah. They're
yeah.
going to bring back shop, and Mr. Phelps is going to teach home ec. So they're going to bring back shop and home ec to the school. That's the one after that. And the one after that, that was an idea from my brother-in-law. He says, have you ever done a plumber? And I said, a plumber? Elementary schools don't have plumbers, you know? The
Hmm. Hmm.
the custodian would unclog any problems if there was a problem, you know? So he says, well, what if somebody stuffed something really big down the toilet, and you'd have to call in a professional. And I said, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I wrote, Mr. Plumber is dumber. So that one is the third one that I've already finished and won't be coming out for like over a year. So those books will be coming out down the line. And I'll just quickly mention that I also do other stuff besides My Weird School. And in fact, I've got a book coming out tomorrow, Jason, actually.
Wow.
It,
Prolific indeed.
yeah, well, I've been working on this for like a couple of years during the pandemic. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
I live in New York City, and I live right across the street from Central Park in New York. And in the middle of Central Park, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a large obelisk in the
Uh-huh.
middle. It's
Uh-huh.
called Cleopatra's Needle, and I would ride my bike around the park. It's a 6 mile loop, and ride past Cleopatra's Needle like every day. And like I didn't know anything about it, and people don't pay any attention to it. But I did a little research. This is during the pandemic when I had a lot of free time. And I found that it was 3,500 years old,
Wow.
carved carved in Egypt, and it was in Egypt for like 30 centuries. And then in 1880, the Egyptian government gave it to the United States.
Huh.
So this one guy, Henry Goringe, he was a Navy officer. he was basically responsible for lowering this 220-ton obelisk to the ground, sliding it inside a boat. He cut a hole in a boat, stuck it in the boat, brought it across the Atlantic Ocean,
Hmm.
and raised it up again in Central Park where it is today. And anyway, I learned a little bit about it. So I wrote this book called The Mostly True Story of Cleopatra's Needle,
Love
told
it.
in diary form by these five kids who all participated in the history of this obelisk. And so I don't just write silly, funny books like My Weird School. I write kind of more serious stuff too. And anyway, you asked me how people can get in touch or find out about me. Basically, the easiest way is my website, www.dangutman.com. And for people who are on social media, I post like every day on Facebook and Instagram and X.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, I love the range. I love the you clearly have a passion and a fuel that burns as you're creating and creating ahead and creating more. So greatly appreciate the time. Glad to have you back anytime. And I believe we promised each other an Air 5, I believe.
All
There it
right,
is.
Jason. It was so great talking to you. I hope I didn't go on and on too much,
No,
but
no, you were wonderful. Wonderful. Great
I really
conversation.
appreciate your having me on the podcast.
Glad to have you anytime. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.